Campus housing said it could be weeks, maybe even months, before they could get me a room in the dorms. It was my freshman year at USC. My older brother was in his final year and living off campus in a run-down two-story hippie pad. Soon, out of any other viable options, my parents pressured him into letting me crash on a camping cot in his small bedroom. Almost everyone in the house was a cinema major, which seemed to entail hanging out, playing music, getting high, and making the occasional experimental film. Meanwhile, I was taking calculus and physics and slowly dying on the academic vine. But things were way more interesting on the home front. The kitchen sink of the place was perpetually filled with crusted, dirty dishes, so the whole downstairs was crawling with cockroaches. You didn't want to enter a room at night and suddenly flip on a light switch. The usual off-the-shelf remedies like Black Flag had already been tried, but failed miserably. In desperation, one of the disgusted young women roommates went to the local drugstore, begging for help. The pharmacist there referred her to an exterminator friend who provided a mysterious controlled substance, white powder. The man instructed her that a single spoonful, but no more, should be mixed with a quart of water and then sloshed around the baseboards of the kitchen and the dining room area. "This will take care of your problem," he nodded, smiling fiendishly. That afternoon, several curious roommates gathered to watch the application. At first there was nothing. "This is bullshit, man," someone said after many long minutes of waiting. But then a low rumble began to build within the woodwork, followed by a literal wave of frantic scuttling roaches washing out across the worn linoleum floor. Women and men alike scrambled onto nearby chairs and tables, some of them screaming in horror as the roach death throes played out below. And then someone left out the bowl of mescaline-laced green jello. The house dog, Soaring Hawk, got into it at the kitchen table, licking it nearly clean. Freaked and agitated, he paced from room to room, scanning our assembled worried faces with haunted electric eyes, before finally dashing out the back door as someone re-entered after emptying the trash. The whole house was in mourning for days. Tom, who'd made the jello, was inconsolable. "I should have been more careful. I should have been more careful," he muttered over and over to himself. "Poor little guy." The women of the house, in their denim overalls, gathered each night at the back stoop, a solemn sisterhood vigil, sing-songing, "Soaring Hawk." But he was never seen again. A week or so later, I came home late from a hard day of calculus homework. The living room and dining room were both dark, but a spectral white light glowed from the distant kitchen, brighter than day. Tentatively entering the room, I found it filled with movie Klieg lights, a tripod-mounted 16mm movie camera, and a long-haired assistant holding a boom mic above the elaborate scene. Seeing me enter, the soundman held a finger to his lips and then quickly returned to his task. At the stove, a stark naked young woman cooked Jiffy Pop, her hips gyrating seductively with each rotation of the pan, a steaming aluminum foil mushroom rising with the building clatter of the hot corn. After a minute or so, the girl's hips gradually slowed, and the metallic cacophony sputtered and pinged down to an eerie silence, the foil dome looming large and full. The girl turned down the blue flame, then seized a gleaming nearby kitchen knife, ceremoniously stabbing the foil, lowering her face and taking in the rising buttery cloud of steam. She turned to the camera, knife still in hand, eyes filled with satisfied desire. "And cut," said the young director. "Well, that was something different," I said to the guy who'd silenced me. "It's called Jiffy Pop," he reported. "Looks more like Nude popcorn," I said. His eyes brightened. "Hey, that's not bad. I'll mention it to Tom." It was endlessly hard to sleep at the place. Lying there on my fold-out cot that first night, shafts of strobing white-hot light suddenly erupted across the sheet hung as a makeshift curtain. "What the hell is that?" I asked my brother. "It's just the guy next door," he reported matter-of-factly. "He deals in stolen cars, cuts them up at night with an acetylene torch, and then sells the parts on the black market." "Ah," I said. Everyone in the neighborhood seemingly had a racket. The local kids ran a ring of stolen bikes from campus, reselling them to other unwitting students, and a full-on armed drug dealer lived out back in the granny unit above the carriage-style garage. and there were ever-shifting turf wars between the various camps. Incensed one afternoon as the kids brazenly cut a bike deal out at the sidewalk, a fat wad of bills clearly in hand, the drug dealer stormed out with his sawed-off shotgun, telling them to get the hell away from my house. The kids all scattered, but then came back later that night, doused the dealer's VW Bug in gasoline, and flicked a match to it. An enormous fireball soon lit up the night. Within minutes, a roaring fire engine arrived, hosed down the flaming debris, and the blackened shell of the car was hauled away for scrap. After that, things calmed down for a bit, but then the real heat arrived. I came home late one night from the library, and Rachel, one of the women's cinema majors, exclaimed, "You won't believe what happened today. The FBI was here." She said that an undercover agent had come to the door, introduced himself, displayed his badge, and then pulled out a grainy black and white telephoto picture from a manila folder. "Do you know this man?" he asked officiously. The figure was clearly the car guy next door. She guessed that it would be pointless to lie. Yeah, he's our neighbor," she said, "but I don't really know him." The agent nodded, then pulled out a second 8x10 photo, featuring Rachel and the man, laughing together on our front lawn. "Is this you?" he asked rhetorically, his eyes probing. Sensing her growing fear, he explained that the man had recently expanded his operation into neighboring states, which made it a federal crime, and that they'd been surveilling the area for days. Anyone knowingly aiding and abetting him could ultimately be considered an accessory to his crimes, he noted. Rachel paused. "Look, I know he may be up to some shady stuff," she said, "but I don't really know him or what he does, beyond just saying hello from time to time. I'm just a student." The agent looked back at her for a long time, nodded, and then put away the pictures. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention this conversation," he said. She nodded back. Soon after, the car thief disappeared into the night, along with his backyard of cars and parts. Perhaps he'd gotten wind of things, maybe even from Rachel. She never really said, and no one wanted to ask. But it was a whole lot easier to sleep at night without that blowtorch. I later heard that Nude Popcorn was the hit of the semester at the cinema department's student shorts program, proclaimed as a tour de force exploration of psychosexual post-feminist political dialectics. The film had been dedicated to Soaring Hawk, and a sequel was in the works.